country.
Our rights come from nature and God, not from government.
All God asks of you is faithfulness.
35 years of fighting for the family, standing for the church, laboring to return to a moral and biblically based culture.
This is the American Family Association at AFA Today.
And I don't know where you are today. I don't know if you're in the midst of a very busy afternoon listening to the American Family Radio app, maybe in Times Square, those of you watching on the Christian Television Network and some others that have you on Sky Angel, other places. You may see the view of Times Square on this busy Monday on your screen. Thank you for being there. Thank you for doing all that you can to keep your mind and life clear in accordance with what we believe to be the inspired, authentic, authoritative Word of God. Kevin McCullough welcoming you to a Monday, a very busy Monday. We've got a lot of preparation that's going underway right now for the president's big shindig tomorrow night. He's got to come to the people, and he's got to do something that's a little bit hard to do, and that is he has to convince us in overwhelming numbers to change our minds. He has to tell us things that are going to move us from where we are, because in the all-out assault that everything that Washington could throw at us over the last 2 weeks, he hasn't closed the deal. In fact, according to the newest poll that's out today, 6 out of 10 Americans firmly believe that we have no business doing anything in Syria. And part of the reason why that is the case, friends, is very simple. We are hearing stories of what has happened. Some of you know that I do a weekend broadcast that is on television and radio in a few places called The Baldwin McCullough Show. And this last week, a TV network picked that up, and for the first time we were beamed into Denver, Colorado, where TV viewers there got us for the first time. And a woman from Syria, a Syrian national who's only recently come to the U.S., called the show. And she said, Kevin, I want to express something to you. I want to be very clear about this. The rebels are bad people. And I said, Salma, that was her name, what makes you say that? And she says, because for the last 2 days, I've been on and off the phone every other hour with my family and friends in a little town called Malula, Syria. And we talked about the town of Malula last week on this broadcast. It is a town where the rebels have overthrown the military there, the Syrian military. And here's how they overthrew them. They rolled up to the city gate where the military was standing post, and one of them detonated a suicide bomb. That was how they started the quote liberation of Malula from the oppressive Syrian military. Now, let me just tell you, under Assad, and he's by no means a good guy or a perfect guy, but under his regime, this largely Christian town has been left unencumbered by anything. They've been allowed to live their lives, go about their business, do their thing. Because they're in a region that the military had been protecting, the military sent troops to serve as checkpoints to make sure that people that got in and out were not harassing the citizens of Malula. And here come the suicide bomber blows himself up. There were a couple of Syrian military guys that escaped that bomb. So the rest of the guys that were with them chased those guys down and slaughtered them. And then they began to go systematically through the town of Malula, threatening conversion to Islam, i.e. giving up Christianity, or death. This is what has happened in one of the Christian towns that have been overrun by the rebels, the supposedly free Syrian rebels. I've been telling you for weeks there's nothing free about them. They are under the control, the guidance of, the will of the Al-Qaeda forces that have infiltrated the rebellion's side, and I don't see anything good coming of this. Well, it was interesting because many of those things I had read in actual press reports. It was interesting to hear a woman who had those stories confirmed for her through relatives that she had spoken with, longtime friends, and to hear her voice just quake and be devastated the way it was. She said, the U.S. shouldn't be involved. shouldn't get involved. It's going to make things worse. And anyway, it's very, very telling. Another interesting thing that I ran across this weekend, by the way, welcome to Monday. I'm Kevin McCullough. The phone number is 888-589-8840. Ed Asner and I have a bit of a history with each other. We don't like each other much. Ed Asner's the longtime actor in Hollywood. And he and I were at a movie event, a debut of his a few years ago. You may know the movie Elf. Well, when they debuted Elf, I was amongst a handful of media that were in attendance that night, and so I sat next to Will Ferrell and had some chats with Bob Newhart and Lou Grant, Ed Asner, the human embodiment of the character Elmer Fudd. He was in attendance because he plays Santa Claus in that movie. And at the reception following the screening, I heard him say some things at the time about a couple of other talk show hosts and intentions that his liberal friends had for them. And I reported that in a column that I wrote later. The next day, he did a roundtable with some of the media, and I misquoted him entirely by mistake, but it was entirely my fault. I should not have run the quote without confirmation, and I didn't get the confirmation, and I ran the quote, and it was a bad quote. And so I was thoroughly embarrassed as a journalist that I hadn't done a good job. I had to issue a retraction. But Ed Asner doesn't like me much because of that, because I implied in the quote that he had a certain degree of admiration for Joseph Stalin. When I went back and got the exact quote, I realized that it's technically possible that he could have said what he said without admiring Joseph Stalin. But I still hold to everything that I came away from that impression with, that his body language, that his little grin about it in the midst of the discussion, all said that he was kind of down with Stalin. Long story short, since that time, there have been a couple of times I've noticed he said something politically, and I've looked the other way. I haven't said anything about it. What he said this weekend, I couldn't ignore anymore. What he said this weekend absolutely, I think, betrays what real progressives are like and what their true principles are like. I believe that what he said this weekend so demonstrated the truth of what progressives, how they think, what the left is like, what they believe. I just thought it just demonstrated it so well. I just had to make note of it. And so I did a Facebook post about this, and it got, 200 and something responses very, very quickly. But basically he said this: yes, it's true that Hollywood opposed President Bush on all of his wars. Yes, it's true that Hollywood in general opposes war. Yes, it's true that they should always be against war. But when asked why the current Hollywood industry has said little to nothing about President Obama's proposal to go to war, it was very interesting to see Elmer Fudd, Ed Asner, respond the way he did. Because he said, and of all the reasons why you could come up with something that might be even moderately important, like, well, we're trying to give the president the benefit of the doubt. We haven't seen the evidence either. Something very simple like that. Ed Asner just blurted it out. At least if Josh Feldman of Mediaite got his quote correctly, and I think he did. He said a lot of people in Hollywood don't want to oppose Obama because they don't want to feel anti-black. Just let that sink in for a second. They don't want to oppose President Obama because they're afraid of being labeled racist. So what I deduce from that statement, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, please, but what I deduce from that statement is, if you oppose President Obama, you will be labeled a racist. Is that what he's implying? Here's his exact quote. A lot of people don't want to feel anti-black by being opposed to Obama. So if I disagree with a person of a different skin color than myself, does that make me racist? What if I disagree with someone who's my same skin color? Does that make me self-hating? What if I disagree with the taking of unborn life? Does that make me anti-woman? The lovely bride doesn't think so. If I oppose my child's will, when as a thundering 3-year-old he is getting to the point where he's arguing about everything, openly disputing everything, if I oppose his will, does that make me anti-child? See, I've heard the left call the right racist for simply offering a different perspective than what President Obama says. I've never heard a leftist say, well, we can't stand up for the principles that we hold because we'll be labeled a racist as a result. Did I get that wrong, or is that what he's actually saying? 888-589-8840. Let me put it to you again. A lot of people don't want to feel anti-black by being opposed to Obama. So if you oppose Obama, you will feel anti-black. What happened to being colorblind? What happened to not being confused by what the truth is? See, I would prefer to obliterate the confusion, concentrate on the actual substance of what the policy is and the actual substance of what the responses are, and be involved in the discussion of the material facts, not by this weird kind of ethos of potential emotional reaction to being called a name. See, there are people that get mad at me and call me a name daily. I don't care. I don't care if you call me a name. My job is to tell you the truth. My job is to be here encouraging you to get out of the realm of confusion and into the realm of fact, and moving from there towards pursuing a life of clarity. And that doesn't have anything to do with being a Republican or a Democrat or a Hollywood liberal or a New York liberal or a red state conservative or any of the rest of it. None of that matters a whack to me. I couldn't care less about any of those names or labels or junk. What I yearn for is truth. So Ed Asner says, as a Hollywood icon, we, the Hollywood community, who have, this is in parentheses, who have significant influence and reach and prestige and visibility and celebrity and all the things that we could use to draw attention to a principle, draw attention to something that we firmly believe, something that we opposed President Bush on again and again, and said, this is something that is so important that we are going to make a stand for it. But if we perceive someone's going to call us a name, suddenly the importance of that principle just, no, we're not going to talk about principles because someone may call me a name. This is why, for their own sake, the liberals have to let conservatives take over. They'll get themselves killed if they stay in power, because they have no principles. Because there's no right or wrong. It's just, well, I don't want to be called a name. Someone may call me a name if I oppose someone who's president and a different color than me. He may call me a name. Is that the world we're inheriting? I'm Kevin McCullough. This is AFA Today. Stay with us.